Alright, I've completed my first step of taking the 4-gauge wire and wrapping it 5.5 turns in a counterclockwise direction through the center of my toroid. The toroid is wrapped clockwise, and I had to use 2 pieces of wire because I didn't get the right size. I think it got 3 feet and 8 feet, so that's 11 feet. I was able to make not quite a wide enough encircling my toroid. I probably should have gotten 11 or more feet, maybe 13. Because in the nice pictures that I have of Clarence's setup, his wrapping fits around the toroid, not on top of it or underneath it, so I didn't have enough wire. But I did it, and I finally got it done, got the insulation off the ends. That was fun. And I re-examined the pictures, and I determined that the 4-gauge wire is counterclockwise as it goes through the center and wraps around. It looks wait a minute. It's counterclockwise, so why am I waving my hand clockwise? No, actually it comes out the top and goes around this way, because the stack of wires going down from the top down, considering that this first wire coming out the top of the toroid is the topmost winding of the stack, it goes counterclockwise as it goes down the stack and finally underneath and then comes up through the middle. So it's a counterclockwise turn as you go through it, and then come up the center and then go through it. So we have a coil as it is, an air core coil of the 4-gauge wire, which is counterclockwise, opposite to the clockwise winding on the toroid. Let's see what else. I think that's it for now. So that's all I was able to do. It took a few days. And I'm going to hook this up to my earthing apparatus, one into the bed sheet and one into the grounding rod. And I'm going to try sleeping on it just by itself without anything else. Now, normally I add a short across here, and then I put 6.6 gigaohms of resistance in another circuit powered by a AA battery. Or, in the alternative, if I had it, which I don't, it's in storage, a 4-inch long bar magnet that's 1 inch across attached to this. That's been my ideal in the past. It really energizes the coil and makes sleep very blissful. But what I'm going to try to do is avoid the use of a permanent magnet or a 200 picoamp circuit that's been shorted. Instead, I'm going to try to build this apparatus step by step and see what impact it has on the physiology at this first leg of the journey, before I start daisy chaining any more electromagnetic paired or doublet keepers. Electromagnetic doublet keepers. I don't have a neon bulb yet. I'm going to get a bunch, because I may need more than one. Every doublet might require a new one, or I may only need one. I don't know. The capacitor I'm going to make myself from plates of glass so that I can have a floating plate in the middle. So I'm not going to have these things rated. The neon bulb is rated, though, for like 80 volts in order to operate. What I'm going to do to bring it on is increase the surface area up here. Although if I increase the surface area here, that might do the job too. I don't know. But the video on YouTube showed that the top load surface area has to be increased. Which means I could just run an aluminum strip of foil along the wall. A nice long one to create lots of surface area. I could do that. And that'll be my aerial in my room, my extended aerial. It'll come up from the earthing bed sheet, and it'll be extended above it. And I'll be in the middle. Single wire connection. So that's all I have right now is this loop I've added on. And of course I didn't wind this with magnetic wire, unfortunately. This is copper clad aluminum wire, audio wire, 18 gauge, the purple. and I only did one wrapping. I don't remember the count. It was something over 100, I don't know. Around a floor flange, a 9-inch floor flange, 9-inch across, made of cast iron, not exactly ferrite, which is the preferred embodiment. So I'm just using things for the most part that I already have, rather than go out and getting more stuff to replace it with, and then just seeing how it works, I don't know. What do I know? Figuring that my body will tell me, because it has to be earth energy. There can be no batteries involved, no AC mains involved, no inverter, AC inverter involved. That's my predicate, is that everything has to be based, the whole circuitry has to be based on the earth and my body and the air and nothing else, other than the components themselves. And I don't care how not efficient this is, I'm a purist, and so in the tradition of my father, so I want to, he was a hygienist, I want to maintain bio-friendly, biocompatibility of the field, the electromagnetic field that this is going to be setting up, so that it's safe for use down the centuries, It's good for like millennia, because we shouldn't have to worry about cancer, stem cells, leukemia among the young people. We shouldn't have to worry about that if we set it up correctly from the beginning. And so that's the kind of challenge I'm posing to myself, is not merely replicating what other people have done, but also suitable to my criteria from the beginning. And I don't know, that's just the way it is. Just the way it is. I was thinking about this, and of course this is 6 turns, but when you involve the toroid, you lose half a turn, the part of the wire that goes down the center, so you're left with 5.5 surrounding it. Well, when we take 5.5 and divide by 2, we get 2 1/4, and if we round up to the nearest similarity or parallelism with this circuit here, it turns out to be 2.5 on one side and 2.5 the other. 5 turns. Just like the single toroid situation here, only this is doubled to 2 toroids. And then he goes and puts the captor loop on a wire between the 2.5 turns. Well, in the pictures I looked at, he loops the captor wire, grounding wire, in the middle of the 5 loops. The middle of the 5 loops, the third strand. If you organize this and even it out, which one of the wire coming out the top is the topmost loop, and the wire going underneath the toroid coming up the center is the bottommost wire of this coil of 4-gauge wire, this the electric keeper, the secondary. So that means that the middle strand number 3, is equivalent to this strand that goes across in between the 2.5 turns. What else? Well, I think that was the main thing. The 5.5 loops, when cut in half and mirrored on 2 sides, results in 2.5 turns on either side, and the captor loop loops in the strand between them, which is equivalent to looping the middle of the 5 strands, strand number 3, or winding number 3, in the middle. So that's pretty cool. It shows how thorough Clarence is. Very logical, methodical, thought this thing through, probably tested out all the variations, and so it's not just pretty. It's not just symmetrical. It makes sense. Going between the 2 toroid system and the 1 toroid system, you have to know what you're doing, right? So analyzing the situation, it's good, because then you know what you're doing and you know how to go about doing it and why. Most importantly, why. Now, in order to measure the voltage difference between my aerial and ground, let's back up a little. What I'm going to have to do is put a second line with a capacitor, the style of capacitor I'm going to make myself from scratch, and So it'll be a closed loop, but it's broken in a sense, so that only voltage difference will happen on either side of the capacitor, and no amperage will flow. So that I can then measure both sides of the capacitor, and that'll tell me basically how much, if I hook it up right, if one wire goes to one side of the strip of aluminum foil, then I'm going to put around the perimeter of my room, you know. I got some wall space left, plus I got the ceiling. So if I make a linear strip and hook up one wire from ground to one end of the strip, and the other end of the strip bring the wire down and cut it off with a capacitor before going back to connecting to the same earth ground to make a loop, and then just measure the voltage difference on either side of the capacitor, and that should tell me how much voltage difference I have between the earth and my aerial, or throughout the whole loop for that matter. What kind of voltage am I setting up? Obviously that's not the circuit, but it's the first step of deciding, well, I need a minimum of 80 volts between ground and aerial for my neon bulb. Where is it? Here. I'm going to move it probably up to here to operate. So I'm going to do a search on the internet to see if I can find a low voltage neon bulb. I probably won't be able to find it. They're probably all the same. I've done this before, I think. And I came up empty-handed, and I probably will come up empty-handed this time as well. So whether I like it or not, there's no... this is probably why Clarence had a problem trying to figure out how to make a low-scale system for proof of concept to demonstrate to people. Because you need the neon bulb, and they can't operate less than 80 volts, and your house current is 115, so, you know, how are you supposed to deal with this? I mean, you can have appliances, like a flashlight, if you want to run that as your load, but that's not the same as your top load here that you're dealing with in the aerial and the neon bulb. That requires 80 volts. So I have to get an 80 volt difference between the top of the aerial and the ground. And I may have to increase grounding points. And the only way for me to do that easily is to use the orchard near me, which is not according to protocol. I'm supposed to have it, you know. Anyway, so I'm working with what I got, and I'm just going to try to have to monkey with it and see what I can get away with and see what I can't get away with in order to set up the circuit from scratch, one step at a time, as I work my way along. The first is to get the voltage difference between the top of the aerial and the ground set up so that the neon bulb goes off. If I have a loop that's broken amperage-wise, but is a closed loop voltage-wise, a closed circuit, so I can measure the voltage running through that closed loop involving the aerial and the ground. Well, it's been a success sleeping on my earthing bed connected to this in line without any shorts with the earth, in line with the earth. I'm connected to the toroid. That's these two connections here coming out. One of these, let's see, the black one goes to earth and the red one goes to my earthing bed sheet, so I have no shorts. I've got a resistor there, 100 kilo ohm resistor between the toroid and the earth ground, and then I have another one between the bed sheet and the toroid. But I go straight through the toroid and back out to the earth, and so this is a closed loop, as you can see, the loop being the primary clockwise, and the secondary being counterclockwise. Actually, it comes out the top and then goes around, comes up the bottom, so it's a counterclockwise loop, just like it's supposed to be. So now all I have to do is figure out what kind of next step to take. But anyway, this is what's happened so far, and the experience of sleeping on it has been very good, very rewarding. It seems to have a tendency of warming my body. So I don't mind sleeping in a room in which the temperature is pretty much 64 degrees. I don't mind. 2 blankets and a comforter, sleeping naked underneath that, making at least half, 50% contact with the earthing. I mean, I could get a top sheet that's an earthing bed sheet so that my whole body makes contact with my earthing, full contact with the circuit instead of just half of me at one time. But at the moment, that's all I'm doing is half of me, and it's very good. It's working out very well indeed. So that's all I have to say. And my grounding rod is just a 1 foot long stainless steel rod that comes with the earthing equipment. It's not 8 feet. It's nothing of the sort, and it's just one rod. And the soil out here gets to be pretty dry in the summertime, so I don't even know how well that contact is to the earth. Apparently it's there. It has been raining recently, so it's... Anyway, whatever. That's right. Moisture has nothing to do with it. What am I saying? According to Clarence's experience, moisture just gets in the way. And the magnetism in my area is really atrocious. I think it's worse than Clarence's. It's really bad. I haven't really looked at it carefully. Maybe I should. Anyway, enough said, I guess.